देहेन्द्रिय प्राण मनोधियां यो जन्माप्यशुद्धभयतर्षकर्चरे संसारधर्मे रविमूयमानः स्मर्त्या हरेर्भागवत प्रधान. So, within the material world, one's material body is always subject to birth and decay. Similarly, the life air prana is harassed by hunger and thirst. The mind is always anxious. The intelligence hankers for that which cannot be obtained. And all of the senses are ultimately exhausted by constant struggle in the material nature. A person who is not bewildered by the inevitable miseries of material existence, and who remains aloof from them simply by remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, is to be considered Bhagavat Pradhana, the foremost devotee of the Lord. It's a very beautiful verse. So here you see it is mentioned that how it is difficult to be Krishna conscious in the material world having material body. So what is the nature of the material body? Sarira avidya jal. This body is made of ignorance. Can you imagine? We are trapped and encased in a body which is made of ignorance. And in such a body, you have to be Krishna conscious. And the nature of this body is that time and again it is subjected to birth and death. Then the life here is harassed by hunger and thirst. Sometimes you see you sit for chanting and now you feel I want to chant very nicely. And suddenly you feel, no, I'm feeling little thirsty. Let me go and bring my water bottle. Then you go for bringing water bottle. Then you chant for 2, 3 more rounds. Then again you feel, somehow I'm feeling little hungry. Very difficult to sit at one place and be just absorbed in Krishna. Why? Because this body is like that. So life here always they will harass. And then mind is always anxious. Sometimes you are sitting and then you feel that suffocation is happening. There is no proper air ventilation here. Oh, it is so hot today. Oh, it is so cold today. Oh, so many things are to be done. So mind always creates problems like this. And then there is a intelligence which hankers. Why I could not get this? Why I could not get this? Wish if I could have that. Wish if I could have that. Can I get that? Can I have that? And then there are senses which are ultimately exhausted by constant struggle in the material nature. Then there are senses who want to interact with the sense objects. In such a situation, a person has to be Krishna conscious. So he's telling if a person, in spite of this situation, is able to remember Krishna, that means he's a Bhagavad Pradhana. Right? We see devotees like His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, trapped in a situation where his body is not cooperating and supporting. And so difficult for him, but still he's so Krishna conscious. Why? Because Bhagavad Pradhana. To extent a person is not affected by the duality of this material world, to that extent we can understand the depth of Krishna consciousness in him. If a person very much and very easily gets affected by the duality of this material world, that means he is not very Krishna conscious. So one of the symptoms of Bhagavad Pradhana is no matter what situation he is put in, he is Krishna conscious. Not only he is Krishna conscious, he is grateful to Krishna for that situation also. That is the situation of Bhagavad Pradhana. So we see Prahlad Maharaj, in all situations he was so happy. When his father is ordering that go and take him and throw him from a top of a mountain, Prahlad Maharaj is closing his eyes and remembering the Lord and is least affected by the situation. So that is the situation of Bhagavad Pradhana. Or Haridas Thakur is being punished in 22 marketplaces, but he is not affected. So this is the beauty of Krishna conscious devotee, that slowly and gradually he is able to uplift himself from bodily consciousness. To the extent we are in bodily consciousness, to that extent we get affected by all these things which are connected to body. So at our level, to remember Krishna becomes very difficult. We have to take care of so many things. Prasadam is taken nicely, environment is very nice, mind is peaceful, intelligence is not agitated. Then to some extent we can remember Krishna. But gradually, as we practice, then we come to a level where we can remember Krishna in all situations and not getting affected by the dualities of this material world. Chaitanya Prabhu was telling very nice that those who are new devotees, for them, the world appears to be big and Krishna is very small. But those who advance, for them, Krishna is very big and the world is very small. And how to know this? That for them, Krishna is big and the world is very small. They don't get affected by the dualities of this material world. When we consider this world as very big, then we get affected by the dualities of this material world. Oh, I could not get success. Oh, I got failure. Oh, why this is happening? Oh, why that is happening? But for those whom the world is very small and Krishna is very big, they don't get affected by the dualities of this material world. They understand that they come and they go. Tam titiksha bharataha, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Then in regard to material dualities, just tolerate. That is the nature of this world. This nature world is made in such a way that it has a dual aspect. When the four Kumaras, they were stopped by Jay and Vijay. So four Kumaras, they become very angry that how all of you can have such a discrimination in the spiritual world. Here, no enemy will come, but still you have this separated vision. You have this drist vision that some people are friend and some people are enemy. So because you have this separated vision, so you should not stay here. You should go to that world where this duality exists. That is the material world. So because you have this nature to see duality, go to the place where duality is there. So we see that how this is a world which is full of duality. Today you are happy and suddenly a situation will come, you are unhappy. And today you are unhappy, suddenly a situation will come, you are happy. Right? Suppose news comes, somebody's grandfather expired, and then he become very unhappy. Oh, how the only grandfather I had, how much he would love me. Alas, how he left his body. And then later on you come to know that he kept a secret documents where he has named property worth 5 crore on your name. Then he will become so happy. Oh, thank you, my dear Lord. He'll become so happy. It is good that he expired very early only. Otherwise, he might have named property to somebody else also. So material world is like that. So when a person becomes happy, when a person becomes unhappy, very difficult to. Srila Prabhupada gives a very nice example, like waves in the ocean. You see waves. There is a time waves are on the top. They are coming like this above. Then there is a time they go below, like that. Now, if you become very happy, oh, see the waves are on the top, then just wait, they'll be down. And if you are unhappy, oh, see waves are down, then just wait, they'll be above. That is how the material world is. We all have experienced that we have gone through these waves of duality. We have gone through sukha and dukkha in this material world. But when the world is big for us, then the sukha and dukkha becomes big for us. And then we become very much disturbed to such an extent that we cannot perform the activities of the soul, because the activities of the body, they create so much disturbance that they become hindrance to the activities of the soul. But those who are pure devotees, because they are not so much on bodily consciousness, they understand they are not the body, they are the soul. So that is why they are not affected by the duality which can affect the material body, and they are more busy and engaged in the activities of the soul, which is beyond the dualities of this material world. So this is the nature of those who are Bhagavad Pradhana, the foremost devotee of the Lord. So according to Srila Madhvacharya, there are three classes of intelligent living beings within this world, namely the demigods, ordinary human beings, and the demons. And the living being is endowed with all auspicious qualities. A highly advanced devotee of the Lord, either on earth or in the higher planetary system, is called a Deva or demigod. ordinary human beings who have good and bad qualities, and according to this mixture, they enjoy and suffer on the earth. And those who are distinguished by their absence of good qualities, who are always inimical to pious life and the devotional service of the Lord, are called asuras or demons. So, out of these three classes, the ordinary human beings and the demons, they are terribly afflicted by birth, death, and hunger. Whereas godly persons, demigods, are aloof from such bodily distress. The demigods they remain aloof from such distress because they are enjoying the results of their pious activities. By the laws of karma, they are unaware of the gross suffering of the material world. So because they have done such kind of karma in the past, so they enjoy in the heaven. So we see in the heaven, the moment they take birth, they become young. There is no old age. They remain young. They remain very healthy. And all varieties of sense enjoyment is freely available there for them. But the pure devotees of the Lord, they are beyond any kind of happiness and any kind of misery because they have given up bodily concept of life itself, and they rejoice and they relish being servant of the Supreme Lord. So susukham kartum avayam. And see here how beautifully he is telling, even in the stage of regulative practice, that means even the stage of sadhana bhakti, the process of bhakti yoga is very joyful, like that. That is beauty of the process of bhakti yoga. So you will find in the Vedic time, to practice spirituality was not so easy. All the examples which we see in Srimad Bhagwatam, how much hardship they are taking for practicing spirituality. They are doing a lot of austerities, they are cutting down on all kinds of sense gratification, they are fully and exclusively absorbed in remembering Krishna. Whereas we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knowing well that how fallen people in Kali Yuga will be. So we see how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so merciful. We see in our society that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knowing well and then Srila Prabhupada knowing well the situation of people in Kali Yuga. So we are given Krishna consciousness in such a way that we can happily practice it. So like in regard to prasadam, in Srimad Bhagwatam you will not find any discussion about prasadam. You will not find anyone talking about prasadam. Because they say, hey, what is this? This is a bodily activity. But we see in ISKCON, Prabhupada told ISKCON is a kitchen religion. And such tasty prasadam which can be offered to the Lord and which can be honored by the devotees of the Lord. Then sweet kirtan. In Srimad Bhagavatam, you will not find any Dhruv Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj having kartal. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Only austerities. Cutting down all kinds of entertainment, sense gratification, any connection, any bodily connection, ripping apart and just exclusively remembering Krishna. But you see, we have such beautiful engagements for our senses. Then traveling to the holy places, so many holy places, and by Lord's mercy, all holy places have become so easily accessible also. In the Vedic time, if you have to plan to go to some holy place, then you have to take 4 or 5 months leave. And it's so difficult. Once, if you go to one holy place, then you will give up desire to go to any other holy place because you have to walk, tolerate, no facilities, and full of austerities. But nowadays, you see devotees they book flight ticket, train ticket, and advance room booking, advance prasadam booking, and then after 6 months, devotees say, "Prabhuji, इस बार कहाँ जाएंगे? इस बार कहाँ जाएंगे?" You don't hear this thing in Vedic time, people becoming so eager to go to holy places because they were so difficult to reach. Sometimes some people once in a lifetime they would visit Vrindavan. The parents of Ramanujacharya once in a lifetime they came to Vrindavan. And in our case, how many times we go to Vrindavan? There are so many examples where once in a lifetime they would visit. In South India, how many times we have been? But many people once in a lifetime they would go. There are people once in a lifetime they would come to take bath in Ganges. Once in a lifetime. In our case, how many times we go like that? सो चेतन महाप्रभु नो, ये कलियुगा के लोग हैं, इनको घूमना फिरना बहुत पसंद है, थोड़ा ट्रेन वगैरह चालू कराओ, ट्रेन फ्लाइट टिकट चालू कराओ, और जितने भी होली प्लेसेस हैं उसमें अकोमोडेशन प्रॉपर बनाओ, प्रसादम का फैसिलिटीज क्रिएट करो. So for devotees now, going to holy place has become one way to recreation, one of the way to enjoy, right? Why? Because Mahaprabhu made it possible. And same way rendering services also. So that is the beauty of Bhakti Yoga, that it is a very joyful process. Then dancing, chanting, this is the process. And that's why Lochan Das Thakur says, Sab avatar sara suromani kevala ananda kanta. Among all incarnations, the incarnation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the supreme and is full of bliss. Keval Ananda Kanda. We see our life also, if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not have come, and if Acharya like Srila Prabhupada would not have given mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the way we have received, most of us would not have come to bhakti. Because very rare to find a person who after birth is looking, where is God, where is God, where is God. We challenge, why you are talking about God? Why it is important to know about God? But then eating butter halwa, eating sweet rice, associating with devotees, hearing some classes, and initially very likely that people they come to bhakti because of their philosophical conviction. But most people they come to bhakti कुछ तो अच्छा है, लोग भी अच्छे हैं, प्रसाद भी अच्छा है, अच्छा लग रहा है, थोड़ा ट्राई कर लेते हैं. And then slowly, gradually, they are able to appreciate mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we are so fortunate that we took birth when Savavatar Shara Shiromani Kevalanand Kanda, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared and came, like that. Same way you see, we are so fortunate. Before Rup Goswami, matter was seen as obstacle in bhakti. And if you want to be a devotee, then first thing is throw matter. Rup Goswami came and he said, Arey, matter also you can engage in Krishna's service. He brought the principle of Yukta Vairagya. Before Rup Goswami, it was only Vairagya. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was knowing that the people in Kali Yuga, if you talk only about Vairagya, then they will have Vairagya for Krishna only. They will say, I have so much detachment that I am detached from the Lord only. So they have this nature, cut, using laptop, technology, mobile. So Rupa Goswami told, okay, use all in Krishna's service. Just imagine if those who join ashram, if they are told no laptop, no mobile, no using any vehicle to travel. If you see a Vedic sadhu, he walks, he does not take any vehicle. Now also there are some sadhus, if you go to Badrinath and all, they will walk all the way to Badrinath. They will never use any vehicle. They don't sit in any vehicle. But suppose if that kind of a situation was for us, you cannot sit in any vehicle, you cannot use any technology, you cannot use any gadgets, you cannot use any machine, and you have to eat sattvic food devoid of salt and spices. तुम्हारी जीवा बाहर आ जाएगी. मेरे को क्यों रखा है? Correct? Very difficult for us, right? In our case, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us everything, and then he's telling, थोड़ा chanting भी कर लो प्रभु. भक्ति के नाम पे सब enjoyment कर रहे हो, chanting भी कर लो थोड़ा. ये महापुर की बहुत कृपा है. But we should not take it lightly. Yesterday I was making a point, for devotees, their wealth is remembrance of Krishna. So it is mercy of Mahaprabhu that knowing our situation, he is allowing us, and he has created a process of Kevala Anand Kanda. But we have to see that we use all this to remember Krishna. So whatever technology we have, because technology is a blessing also, curse also, depending upon how we are using it. So we should not take these concessions which are given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for our personal benefit. We should see that it is mercy that I am so fallen, I cannot remain without it. So Mahaprabhu has allowed me, but let me use for his service. Let me use to remember Krishna. Like that. So I have to use all this. Let me use all the resources to share and give Krishna consciousness to others. So if that way we use, we become purified also. and we develop Krishna consciousness also. Ultimately, end of the day, we have to remember Krishna, Ante Narayana Smriti. So the process is blissful, but the purpose should not be forgotten. Just because process is so blissful, we should not forget the purpose only, that अरे what I am supposed to do. मुझे बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है, क्या खाया रे, पनीर खाया, बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है मुझे, ऐसा सोए प्रभु जी, सोते ही रह गए, और प्रभु जी चित्रकूट जाके आए, प्रभु जी यहाँ जाके आए, प्रभु जी वहां जाके आए, लेकिन किया क्या वहां पर, प्रभु जी आनंद बाजार में प्रसाद खाया, और क्या किया प्रभु जी, उसके बाद सोए, और क्या किया, फिर प्रसाद खाया। फिर महाप्रभु भी बोलेंगे कि इन लोगों को कोई उद्धार नहीं कर सकता। फिर तो भगवान के जितने भी पुरुष अवतार हैं वो सब हमारा नाम जो है कृष्ण भगवान के पास भेज देंगे कि इनका उद्धार कोई भी इनकारनेशन नहीं कर सकता है, आप खुद आए तब भी नहीं हुआ, इनको ब्लैक लिस्ट में डाल दिया जाए। फिर हम लोगों का नाम ब्लैक लिस्ट में डाला जाएगा कि देर आर सम स्पीसीज विच कैन नॉट बी डिलीवर्ड। फिर एक अलग कैटेगरी जो नया भागवतम आएगा उसमें एक अलग कैटेगरी रहेगा, स्पीसीज हु कैन नॉट बिकम डिवोटीज। तो उसमें फिर हमारा टॉप में नाम रहेगा कि ये लोग भक्ति में आए, खाए पिए नाचे गाए, और फिर भी माया के साथ चले गए। So it is a very serious that how much Mahaprabhu is merciful. If you think actually in one way, if someone does not become a devotee now and practices now, then he cannot become one day. There cannot be any more better opportunity than this. Practically, whatever you are good at, particularly whatever your conditioned nature is, that only you can dovetail in bhakti. That is the beauty of bhakti. Otherwise, to go against one's nature, how difficult it is it not? And all other processes are like that. Suppose you are not intellectual and you have to be jnani. You have to become intellectual. There will be, discussion on Vedanta. There will be discussion on sutras, mantras, Upanishads. You cannot say, sir, याद नहीं हो रहा है, ये क्या याद नहीं हो रहा है, ज्ञानी ही हो, याद करना पड़ेगा। And you have to understand also. You have to present also. You have to tell how you have understood the philosophical truth. But in bhakti, you see, we remember, we don't remember, but basic things we know and we can practice like that. And the whole process, same way you see, we need social life. So in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, there is so much talk about association of devotees also. And Srila Prabhupada created a facility where devotees can come together and stay also. Is it not? Now just imagine if this facility was not there. You have to practice alone wherever you are. How difficult, correct? Practicing simple things would have become so difficult. After Ekadasi, on Dwadasi day, you would remember, oh, kal Ekadasi tha. Correct? It was so difficult to be alone and practice. But then Mahaprabhu knew, so Mahaprabhu encouraged, and through Srila Prabhupada created a facility where so many places we have a system where association of devotees is available. Bhaktivinoda Thakur created Bhakti Vriksha where even Grasthas can come together and practice. Because without association in Kali Yuga, it becomes so difficult. Like that. Now you see, because of all these parameters, so many people are taking up to devotion service, but not all of them are looking for devotion service. This is a very unfortunate situation in Kali Yuga, because situations are very favorable, so many facilities are given, ISKCON has such a big name, people now feel proud, ISKCON mein hu, ISKCON ka hu, like that. Like yesterday we had CSR, so this Bank of Baroda regional manager had come. So I was asking how many countries Bank of Baroda has branches. She was telling 27. Then he was asking how many countries ISKCON has branches. I told 165. It was like this. So we also feel little proud to speak, although we don't know where are those branches. But ISKCON has such a big name that now we also at false ego level enjoy the success for which we have done nothing. But that is Mahaprabhu's mercy. But actually we should not forget the purpose. Mahaprabhu has given us everything, but at least we should use all this to become more Krishna conscious, to remember Krishna, to serve Krishna. Simply by chanting the holy name, eating the remnants of food offered to the Lord, and hearing the pastimes, one can merge into the ocean of bliss called Krishna consciousness. See, all these three activities are very relishing. If someone takes to the holy name of the Lord and eats prasadam and hears the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, like that. When we, especially when we hear pastime from authorized scriptures and from bona fide devotees, many of these pastimes you have heard before also, before coming to devotion service. But we could not connect to these pastimes in that way. Neither we could relish or understand these pastimes the way we are doing now. Because now these pastimes we are hearing in Guru Parampara. So this is a very simple process. You sit down and hear. Sit down, chant. Sit down, eat. And then you go back to Godhead. Sometime for a person who is in Rajoguna, he may feel, what I am doing? I am not doing anything. But actually, not doing anything and remembering Krishna means you are doing everything. And doing everything and not remembering Krishna means you are not doing anything. That is how bhakti is. Someone may be sitting and not doing anything, but he is remembering Krishna. Someone may be so active, he may be climbing on the Mount Everest and making a satellite center there. But then in eyes of Krishna, he is doing nothing like that. So we have such a great opportunity that along with our conditioned mind, conditioned situation, we can be devotees of the Lord. So this blissful situation of a living entity is possible if he gives up all the bogus concepts of life. One should not identify himself as a gross material body, nor as a fickle mind, nor as a speculative intelligence. So actually in this also one has to plan to overcome gradually and eventually. First is a fight with the gross body, then you have to deal with the mind, then with the intelligence. So how to deal with the body? First you have to put this body under regulation. If you are not working on living a regulated life, then it's very difficult to not get swayed away by the bodily concept of life. So if you want to think less about this gross body, then you have to have a regulated life. So if you have a regulated life, you'll find 9 o'clock you'll sleep, 3:30 you'll get up, 7, 1 and 8 o'clock you'll take prasadam, and you'll have fixed time for things. Then you don't have to worry. But if you don't have a regulated life, then so much consciousness will go in thinking about this gross body. One time there was some discussion, some brahmacharis, they were talking about not having good health and they wanted to do certain exercise and so and so. So Rajamburu told, you sleep on time and pass a stool in the morning, you'll be fit and fine. He's telling you sleep on time and pass a stool in the morning and you'll be fit and fine. Which is a fact actually. If you can live a regulated life, you can live a healthy life also. Most of the problem happens, and that purports the Prabhupada writes, Prayan Alpa Ayusha Sabhya Kalosmin Yuge Janha. And that's the Prabhupada writes, because of irregular habits and unhealthy life, duration of life has reduced. So if we can have regulated life, that only will help us to have healthy life, and also we will not think so much about our gross body. And also we should have faith on the Lord. Becoming a devotee of the Lord is very special. Yesterday in Srimad Bhagwatam, we were having a discussion that someone who is initiated devotee of the Lord wearing Kanthi Mala, he cannot be touched by any ghost, he cannot be touched by any spirits, he will never be taken by Yamdutas because he is a devotee of the Lord. So being a devotee of the Lord is very special, is not a normal thing. So if we are trying to be a devotee of the Lord, then we have to see that slowly, gradually, we come out of the bodily conscious of life. And then we have to deal with our mind. And only way to deal with our mind is to engage in the positive activities of Krishna consciousness. Mind can only be controlled by putting mind in the instruction of the spiritual master. So when we fill our mind with the positive instructions given by the spiritual master, then slowly, gradually, our mind can be controlled and can be peaceful. And then intelligence should be sharpened and nourished by scriptures. Instead of having a speculative intelligence, we should try to see what Shastras are saying, what Acharyas are saying. In that way, our intelligence will be nourished. Like that. And then one can become a devotee of the Lord. Right. So can you imagine, just because someone is trying to be a devotee of the Lord, how specially he is treated by Krishna? Like that. So yesterday, there is Dhir Prashant Prabhu, he was telling a very nice point. He was telling कि डिवोटी को कोई भी तंग नहीं कर सकता है, डिवोटी को सिर्फ डिवोटी ही तंग कर सकता है. He was telling, you are wearing kanthi mala, you are initiated, no spirits will come close to you, no ghost will come, nothing will happen to you, but only another devotee wearing kanthi mala will come and he may trouble. So he was telling, that's why as devotees we can make lot of progress by making other devotees happy, and we can degrade by giving unhappiness to other devotees. Yes. And also when we see devotees, we get more affected by the secondary qualities of those devotees. But when Krishna sees devotees, he sees them as per the primary quality, that they are trying to take shelter of Krishna. So any devotee, when we also see, we should also try to see that devotee as per his primary quality. He may be struggling, he may not be good in behavior, he may be having a anger nature, he may not be a very polished Vaishnava, but he's trying to chant, he's trying to read, he's trying to worship Krishna. So we should respect, we should value, we should know he's a very special person in eyes of Krishna. In the material world, if we see a person who is having a big car, big property, and very good looking, we become very captivated by him. But he may not be chanting holy names of the Lord. On the other hand, there may be a devotee who is not so good looking, very simple, not very successful, but he chants holy names of the Lord. So in eyes of Krishna, he is very great, like that. And that is why greatness of a devotee is how much he remember Krishna. There is no other parameter. You may give big classes, you may sing very nicely, you may be very successful, but Krishna sees how much we are remembering him. That is how our greatness will be seen in eyes of Krishna. So we have to see all what we have is an opportunity to remember Krishna. So one should identify himself rather as an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. So we have to work in this direction where we try to cultivate our constitutional position of being a servant of the Lord. And this can happen by becoming submissive to some devotee and try to render service under that devotee. So when we try to become a servant of a devotee, then slowly it will become servant of more devotees. Then slowly it will become servant of Krishna also. So first we have to become servant of at least one person. Then our servitude will increase further. And to that extent, we will be able to develop this position of being a servant. And in Kali Yuga, it is not easy, because in Kali Yuga, our consciousness is very much surcharged with mode of passion. So there is a lot of rebellion. And we are against this idea of submitting to someone. So our false ego rebels. Why to hear him? Why to follow him? Why to do what he says? But if you want to cultivate this attitude of being servant of Krishna, then we have to submit our false ego. We have to submit to some devotee and we have to render service under his guidance. Then slowly, gradually, we'll be able to develop this mood of servant like this. One time, one devotee came to His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. महाराज ये कैसे ऑर्डर करता है, कभी ये करो कभी वो करो, मैं परेशान हो गया हूँ महाराज, मैं इनका अंडर सेवा नहीं कर सकता हूँ. Then Maharaj was telling, the very meaning of service is to do what is told. You are saying that you want to do seva, but you don't want to do what he is saying. Then how it can be seva? The very nature of service means you are servant and he will tell you. He is a master. So many times we say that, ये सेवा मैं नहीं करूँगा, but we forget that actually I am not representing a good servant. So if we are representing a good servant, then we should be ready to follow. Sometimes we may have this feeling, प्रभु जी लेकिन उनको पता नहीं है कैसे सेवा होती है, मेरे आइडिया ज़्यादा अच्छे हैं और वो सुनते नहीं हैं, सेवा में सक्सेस नहीं मिलेगा. बट कृष्णा जो है वो कैसे सक्सेस देखेंगे कि हम सेवा भाव में सेवा कर रहे हैं. कृष्णा will not see success in terms of actual success which comes, but Krishna will see I am trying to be a servant of him, and then Krishna will empower. If I have a genuine desire to serve and if I have a genuine idea to serve, then Krishna will help that idea to grow. But we have to function and work more to cultivate our service attitude. We should not feel, kya, people are choking me, I have so much to do for Prabhupada. But we have to know that first thing we have to work upon is becoming a servant of the Lord. Then everything else Krishna will do. The more we develop this attitude of servant, that much Krishna will empower us. That much Krishna will take us to heights. And if you want to go to heights, then we'll come down. Like that. So you have to develop this service attitude more. And it is not easy because the devotees of the Lord, they also represent Krishna. And Krishna is very dynamic. Every moment he changes. Same way sometimes devotees, at one moment they'll say, do like this. Then after some time they'll say, don't do like this, do like this. And an intellectual person like us becomes very bewildered. क्या एक चीज बोलो ना, कभी ये बोलो, कभी वो बोलो, पागल हो गया. But the purpose is not to do that service. Purpose is to make us servant. That purpose we forget. If we forget the purpose, then we cannot see that. But if we know the purpose, then we can understand the purpose is that I have to become a servant of the Lord. Like that. So that's why we have to see that whatever situation comes, we have to work on becoming a servant of the Lord. And the most blissful situation for a soul is to situate in this position of being a servant of the Lord. You see, Advaitacharya was given a lot of respect by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he would feel very uneasy and unhappy. Why Mahaprabhu is giving me so much respect? So he purposefully started speaking Mayavad so that Mahaprabhu becomes angry and Mahaprabhu catches Advaitacharya and starts beating him. And Mahaprabhu is beating Advaitacharya and Advaitacharya is smiling and becoming happy. Finally, you have accepted me as your servant. And who is Advaitacharya? Mahavishnu. So we see in Chaitanya Charitamrita that they would dance at this thought, I am servant, I am servant, I am servant, like that. Because that is the most blissful situation for the soul. To the extent we are away from this, to that extent we suffer, like this. And if we have this consciousness of being servant, being assistant, and being instrument, then we see we don't have any anxiety. Because servant does not have any anxiety. Master tells, do this, done. But in our case, we take the role of servant, but we have attitude of master. हाँ प्रभु जी मैं दास बनना चाहता हूँ. प्रभु जी मैं बताता हूँ कैसे करना है. So then we suffer also like that. Because then so much anxiety comes. ऐसे नहीं हो रहा है, वैसा नहीं हो रहा है, लोग क्या बोलेंगे, लोग बोलेंगे अच्छा ज़्यादा उड़ रहा था, अभी देखो क्या हो गया. But if you are servant, then we don't have any anxiety. So we have to come to this consciousness of being a servant. And this life is made for that purpose. If we become humble servant to our acharyas, to Srila Prabhupada, to Krishna, like this. And see, it is mentioned to the extent a living entity identifies with a gross body, he undergoes the misery of constant drowsiness and sexual desire. So this Madhvacharya, he says this, that two things happen when you identify with a gross body. That is laziness and sexual desire comes. Like that. And as he spoke before, when you identify with mind, then anxiety comes. Right. And when you identify with intelligence, then hankering comes. So here it is mentioned that how when we identify too much with the body, then drowsiness will come. and unquenchable sexual desire will come that will burn away all mental peace and serenity to ashes. Like that. Sexual desires, they will trouble a living entity to such an extent, such dirty thoughts will come, such abominable thoughts will come. That's why it is mentioned that all peace and serenity will be burned to ashes. Like that. But to the extent we develop ourselves, so there are 7 chakras in our body. The lowest one is the Muladhara chakra, which is very close to our genitals. So when our consciousness is at that level, then you'll find we will have a lot of sexual thoughts. So night falls, sexual thoughts, uh, dirty desires to enjoy. This will be more because our consciousness is at level of Muladhara chakra. And those people who have consciousness at Muladhara chakra, when they die, the soul comes out of anus, and they go to hellish planets to suffer. But when the consciousness goes up, then to that extent, the thought process becomes more divine, like that. And when the consciousness reaches here, Brahmarandhena, then 24 by 7 you can be Krishna conscious. Like currently, 24 by 7, one can be material conscious because we are so natural. But when someone has a consciousness so elevated, then even if he's sleeping, he'll be Krishna conscious. He's walking, he'll be Krishna conscious. No matter what he does, he'll be Krishna conscious. Like that. See, here it is mentioned. When a demonic person identifies himself with the prana life here, then he suffers from hunger. So when you identify with body, then you suffer with sexual desire and laziness. When you identify with life air, then you suffer from hunger. Like that. And when you identify with mind, then you suffer panic, fear, and hankering. That ends in disappointment. So mind has this nature to have fear, to have hankering. And when one identifies himself with intelligence, then there is a bitterness and frustration, because intelligence has this nature to always compare, always contrast, compare, and then becoming frustrated. Yes, क्यों है? Like this, bitterness and frustration. And when he identifies himself with false ego, then two things happens: either superiority complex or inferiority complex. I am so low, I am so fallen, I cannot do anything, like that. और सुप्रियोरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स, देखा कमाल, इसको बोलते हैं डिवोटी. That is superiority complex. And when he identifies himself with the process of consciousness, he is haunted by the memories of past. My lord, कितना deep analysis दिया है माधवाचार्य ने. Life here, consciousness, for us to distinguish them also is becoming difficult. Life here, mind, intelligence, consciousness, false ego, body. But one thing is very clear, that we identify with all of them. That much everyone can understand. That we feel hungry also. And you see, when you feel hungry, the life air becomes little hot in the stomach. Right? We identify with the mind also. We identify with the intelligence also. Intelligence has this nature. Like I remember sometime we have to do some service. So suppose you plan that this particular trees will be planted in this series, in this line. Then after some time, another thought will come. We can plant in this, and this particular plant can be planted here in this series. Then now comparison will happen in both ideas. And then lot of bitterness will come. अरे ये भी ठीक है, ये भी ठीक है, अरे ये भी करना है, ये भी करना है, कौन सा करना है? Understood, no? That is how one gets caught up, like that. Then, but it is good for devotees, because whenever we are caught up in this, then we remember Krishna, that Lord, what do you want? Then some guidance comes, and then we do. So when one identifies with the process of consciousness, he is haunted by the memories of the past. And when one wants to control, then all these identification they increase. And see what Madhvacharya is telling, that for a demonic people, sinful life is the standard of their happiness. Those who are having demonic consciousness, how they perceive happiness? By taking up to sinful life. We can observe that in a demonic society, the dark late hours of night are considered the most appropriate for recreational activity. You will find out these people, they become more active in the night only. All nightclubs, pubs, bars, all these things will become very active in the night only because they are demonic. And all the activities they do all are sinful in nature also. When a demon hears that someone is rising at 4 o'clock in the morning to take advantage of the godly early morning hours, he is astonished and bewildered. When they hear that you get about 4 o'clock, so they become very astonished and bewildered. So Srila Prabhupada has commented there are two classes of men. The one is intelligent in material activities for sense gratification, and the other is introspective and awake to the cultivation of self realization. The more one can increase illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling, the more one advances his prestige in a demonic society. Whereas in a godly society based on Krishna consciousness, these things are abolished completely. Similarly, as one becomes blissfully attached to the holy name and the pastimes, one becomes more and more alienated from the demonic society. The demons are self proclaimed enemies of the Supreme Lord and they mock his kingdom. Thus, they are described by Srila Madhvacharya as Adhogateha, those who have purchased their tickets to go to the darkest region of hell. So Madhvacharya is telling that these demons, they deny and they become enemies of the Supreme Lord. He's telling Adho Gateha, they have taken a ticket to go to the hellish regions. On the other hand, if one is undisturbed with the miseries of material life, he is on the same spiritual level as the Supreme Lord. So as we were discussing the duality, so the more one is affected by the duality of the material world, that much he is in a material plane. And the less he is affected by the duality of the material world, that much he is on the spiritual plane. Oh, best among men, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. See, means that is a very high level to not get disturbed by duality. And here Krishna is telling that he becomes eligible for liberation. So two verses. This is a verse in Bhagavad Gita, and another verse in Bhagavatam, Tatenu Kampa Sukshmano. There also Krishna says that when a devotee misery comes, in that misery also he sees mercy of the Lord, then he becomes eligible for back to Godhead. And how one can achieve these stages? By the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So Bhakti Sansoti Thakur, he says, if one is fortunate, he gradually becomes disgusted with the limited vision and activities of Kanishta Adhikari. So what happens is, when you become a devotee of the Lord, initially we also go through all this. So you will find those who are new devotees, they cannot very much appreciate other devotees because it takes time for them to grow. So they will say, हाँ प्रभु जी ठीक है चैंटिंग करता है लेकिन ऐसे कैसे बोल सकता है. हाँ प्रभु जी ठीक है चैंटिंग करता है लेकिन वो ऐसे कैसे बिहेव कर सकता है. Why? Because they are Kanishta. They feel Krishna is very pure. So they'll be having a lot of respect for Krishna. And for devotees, they'll be very skeptical. They'll have a lot of doubts. They'll have difficulty to put faith. They'll have difficulty to trust. They'll not be able to value how devotees are so special. So that is a Kanishta Adhikari. But after, as you make progress in a spiritual life, then you will start feeling disgusted. Why I'm not able to respect devotees? Why I'm not able to serve devotees? Why I find fault with devotees? Can't I see the positive side in devotees? Then what happens is, this is a sign now that you have taken a step to go beyond Kanishta. This kind of feeling is a step that now you are trying to go above Kanishta. Then comes the level of Madhyamadhikari. In Madhyamadhikari, when you see devotee, you'll become so happy. Prabhu, kahan the aap? Kahan the? Like that. That is Madhyamadhikari. A smile will come on your face the moment you see devotees. Kanishta Adhikari means when he sees devotee, he'll turn his face. ये कहाँ से आ गया? But Madhyam Adhikari means you will have a smile on your face. So I remember when I would go to company, so I would somehow or other I would become little unhappy. And when I would come to voice, the moment I would see SRM devotees, the face would smile. I would feel so happy. And they would also welcome me with lot of happiness. Prabhuji, Prabhuji, Prabhuji. I would also become very happy. Like that. So that is how. Once my mother told me I was coming from my home, and somehow a smile came on my face the last day when I was leaving. So my mother told, तू जब घर पे आता है तो ऐसे जैसे कोई सांप सूंघ जाता है, जब जाता है तो पूरा फूल की तरह खिल जाता है, क्या है ये? बोला ऐसा कुछ नहीं मम्मी, मैं बस जा रहा हूँ। क्योंकि अभी डिवोटी बनने के बाद घर में करे क्या? टीवी माया है, मम्मी भी माया है, पापा भी माया ही माया है। तो सबसे दूर रहना है, बच के रहना है। तो सुबह कैसे भी करके चैंटिंग करते थे, फिर थोड़ा हेल्प करते थे घर में। वो कुछ ज़्यादा बात भी नहीं कर सकते ना, क्योंकि तब वो डिवोटीज नहीं थे, तो मटेरियली बात करते थे। फिर but when you become madhyama, then you appreciate devotees. You'll feel very happy to see devotees like that. And then you reach to uttama. Uttama is a very high level where you see the whole world as devotees only. You see only person who is creating problem is myself. Then he's quoting this particular verse that those who are pure devotees, they become so intensified there in their spiritual life, and they repeatedly bath in the dust from the lotus feet of a pure devotee, that the harassment of birth, death, hunger, thirst, fear, and so on gradually cease disturbing the mind. Can you imagine? Because they are so intensified in their service, in their bhakti, that birth, death, hunger, thirst, fear, and so on, these are six whiffs of Maya, but they'll not disturb the mind. We see to some extent in our life also, uh, we don't feel so much disturbance now because of hunger after becoming devotees. And to the extent we are advancing, that will grow. Same with thirst also. Fear also, we have some fear, but to the extent how we are practicing, the fear will be less. And same with death also. Devotee does not fear death also. He knows that death is an opportunity to go one step more closer to Krishna. Like that. So in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu it is mentioned, even if a devotee is frustrated in his attempt to eat properly or clothe himself properly, he should not allow this material failure to disturb his mind. So it may happen you could not get prasadam properly. It may happen you could not get clothing properly. But don't allow this disturbance to disturb your mind. Don't become very disturbed. Sometimes devotees they become disturbed also. क्या प्रभु जी, मैं सुबह सुबह आया, इतना सुबह उठ के मैं प्रसाद नहीं मिला. But devotee should not become disturbed. You should understand, ठीक है, it's okay, नहीं मिला तो. But sometimes devotees become very disturbed like that. So that means they have to grow further in their spiritual life. As one becomes mature in this process of remembering Krishna in all circumstances, he awarded the title Mahabhagavat. तो डिवोटी का लाइफ कैसा है? कुछ भी होता है ना, सबसे पहले किसकी तरफ मुड़ता है? भगवान की तरफ मुड़ता है. प्रसाद नहीं मिला तो भगवान की तरफ मुड़ेगा. Yesterday we were reading very beautiful. It was mentioned whenever some difficulty comes in our life, we should think that this is happening because of my past karma, and this is happening by the mercy of the Lord to make me humble. It's a very beautiful consciousness that Krishna wants to make me humble, and Krishna wants to give me the result of my past activities. So when one becomes mature, then he remembers Krishna. And the moment you remember Krishna, then you will understand actually those problems are not my problem. That is the beauty of remembering Krishna. So we see Angam Maharaj at one point was very disturbed, unhappy. How can I have a son like him? Vena. And he would get so many complaints that, dear king, your son has killed our son. Dear king, your son has killed the teacher only. Dear king, your son has put a fire to the whole school only. So king would become so unhappy. I am such a religious king and this is what I am hearing. Then one night he was sleeping, he was thinking, why God has given a son like this to me? Then this understanding came to his consciousness that God was knowing that how much attached I am to kingdom. And something like this was required to make me detached. And then a smile comes on his face. Because now he's remembering Krishna. In that situation, a smile came. And then that night only he goes like that. So we see this is the beauty of remembering Krishna. Smile will come. In difficult situation also. Like that. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta gives the example that just as a child's ball may be fastened to the end of a rope so that it cannot bounce away, a devotee who surrenders to Krishna becomes tied to the rope of Vedic injunctions and is never lost in worldly affairs. Very beautiful analogy he is giving. Na? That child's ball may be bound to the end of a rope. You have seen there is a sometimes people have no rope and the ball. They throw like this, ball comes back. They throw like this, the ball comes back. So same way is telling a devotee of the Lord is tied like this. So because of which he cannot fall back to the worldly affairs. There is one beautiful lecture His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj has given that the fallen devotee is most miserable because you have knowledge now. So you cannot enjoy in ignorance. But you want to enjoy. So when you enjoy and you have knowledge also. So neither you get enjoyment and you get so much frustration. Because you have knowledge, कुछ नहीं है इसमें. But then you want to try also this. So that's why it is mentioned. Fallen devotee is most miserable. उसकी पत्नी रहेगी, बच्चे रहेंगे, सारे इंद्र तृप्ति के सामान रहेंगे, लेकिन वो ऐसे मुंह बना के बैठा होगा. क्या हो गया प्रभु? क्या करूं? भोग भी नहीं कर सकता, भोग करना भी चाहता हूं. Like that is situation becomes. तो एक डिवोटी बता रहे थे कि बिकमिंग अ डिवोटी ऑफ द लॉर्ड इज लाइक जॉइनिंग अ अंडरवर्ल्ड ग्रुप. जो डॉन का ग्रुप रहता है ना, उसमें क्या एक बार आपने ज्वाइन कर लिया तो छोड़ नहीं सकते अभी. क्योंकि छोड़ेंगे तो भी दिक्कत है, नाम तो खराब हो ही गया. So becoming a devotee of the Lord is like that only. See, now you know that prasadam should be offered. Now you go some places where unoffered food is given. Somewhere it will come in your back of your mind. क्या कर सकते हैं? And somewhere you know the verses of Bhagavad Gita. Anyone who eats anything which is not offered to me is eating sin. Right? So all those thoughts will come like that. So same way Bhakti Anshuti Thakur is telling. Then he is quoting very beautiful verse from Rig Veda. ओम आस्य जानतो नाम चिद व्यक्तान महस्ते विष्णु सुमतिम भजामहे ओम तत्सत. O Vishnu, your name is completely transcendental. Thus it is self-manifested indeed, even without properly understanding the glories of chanting your holy name. If you vibrate your name with at least a small understanding of its glory, that is, if we simply repeat the syllable of your holy name, gradually we shall understand it. How beautiful, no? He's telling even if one is not able to understand the glories of the Lord, still he can make progress. That supreme entity indicated by the Pranav, Om, is Sat or self-revealing. Therefore, even if one is disturbed by fear or envy, the transcendental form of the Lord will become manifest to one who continues to chant the Lord's holy name. Haribo! The devotee of the Lord is so special. Lord Vishnu is telling to Lakshmi ji, if my devotee by some chance is not able to remember me at time of death, I will force myself to come in his remembrance. And I will remember such a devotee. So you see, a situation of a devotee is so special. And here it is mentioned that even if you may be filled of fear and envy at time of death, but if you are chanting holy names of the Lord, then also you will make progress in spiritual life. And the Supreme Lord will manifest because you are chanting the holy names of the Lord. So this is about how a devotee of the Lord is not affected by the dualities of this material world. They will come and they will go, and you have to tolerate. Tam stitiksha bharata. And by this tolerance, we grow actually. We become more strong in our spiritual life. So in the Vedic time, we see that our culture was such that we were trained to tolerate the dualities of this material world. Unfortunately, now in modern times, people they want to adjust, but in the Vedic time they would tolerate. One of the reason we see that why in America and other places they hire Indian engineers because they can better handle the dualities. I was hearing in America one time in 2008 or so, some electricity cut off happened for 8 hours, and some Americans they committed suicide. But in India, we have some, uh, we have some understanding that this is normal. Like sometimes we travel in train, and it was so jam packed. We went to South India, but still somehow we adjusted, although it was a little difficult. But if some foreign person would have been in the same situation, he might have committed suicide. ये क्या है? क्योंकि we are used to handle the dualities. India में we are brought up in a culture when you switch on the fan, it will not work. When you switch on the light, it will not work. When you go inside the bathroom, the tap will leak. We are brought up in such culture. But in the US, they are brought up in a culture. The moment they put a finger to the switch, light will switch on, fan will switch on, like that. Same way, we are brought up in a culture that when there is a heat, we tolerate heat. How many of you have seen that sweat is coming, but then you are tolerating it? We are brought up in that culture. It is very normal for us. Sweat is coming, and then we are tolerating. Same way, sometimes lot of cold is there, but you don't have sufficient cloth and you tolerate. You're brought up in that culture, and it is very good because when you tolerate duality, mind becomes very strong, and that strong mind helps to have determination for practicing spiritual life. If someone becomes very much affected by dualities, then he'll have a lot of difficulty to practice spiritual life because this material world is made of duality. You will find Radhishambru was telling he was traveling in a train और फिर एक मदर बैठी थी और उसका बच्चा था तो बच्चा रो रहा था तो मदर बच्चे को बोली राधेश्यामपुर को देखकर ज्यादा रोएगा ना तो देख वो भूत बैठा है ना उसको दे दूंगी so Rajamguru was telling, what can be done? Sometimes we are given such criticism by people. And the moment I got down from train, there were 20, 30 devotees doing kirtan, putting garland on me. Saying this is duality of the material world. कोई भूत बोल रहा है और कोई बोल रहा है प्रभु जी आगे प्रभु जी आगे प्रभु जी आगे. But if you get too affected by it, तो फिर बहुत मुश्किल होगा. Right? और कई बार लोग बोलते हैं वो देखो बाबा जी को देखो तो बोलता है हाँ बाबा जी भांग पीते हैं अरे नाला है people they actually ask like that बाबा जी भांग पीते हैं मैं कहा नहीं नहीं हम वो वाले बाबा जी नहीं. Sir, I remember I was having one ticket from Varanasi only. It was in three tier AC. तो मैं थ्री टायर एसी में अंदर घुस गया तो मेरा सीट अपर बर्थ था और लोअर बर्थ पे एक मदर सॉरी एक वाइफ और हस्बैंड थे तो मैं अपना बैग लेके ऐसे खड़ा था क्योंकि वो अपना सामान नीचे रख रहे थे ऐसे तो मैं वहां पर आ गया तो जो हस्बैंड थे जो पुरुष थे वो मेरी तरफ देख बोले बाबा जी एसी है लाइक दैट ही टोल्ड बोला हाँ मुझे पता है एसी है तो आपका सीट है क्या बोला हाँ ये अपर बर्थ मेरा है तुरंत फिर उनकी जो वाइफ है वो बोली कौन वाले हैं ये तो फ्लाइट से भी जाते हैं तो फिर मेरे को थोड़ा बुरा लगा अरे क्या इमेज है साधुओं का लेकिन आप देखोगे प्रेज भी मिलेगा इस दुनिया में आपको क्रिटिसिज्म भी मिलेगा क्योंकि जो प्रारब्ध लेके आए हो वो किसको भोगना है आपको ही भोगना है कई बार आपने कुछ नहीं किया है उस पर लोग अप्रिशिएट करेंगे कोई और क्लीनिंग करके चला गया उसके बाद आप आए आपने लास्ट टच दिया लोग प्रभु जी ने कितना 4-5 घंटे लगाए होंगे इसको साफ करने के लिए और हमारा भी फॉल्सी को इतना अच्छा है कि हम रिवील भी नहीं कर रहे हैं प्रभु जी बहुत कोई भी सेवा करते हैं ना बहुत डिटेल में चले जाते हैं प्रभु जी हमारे और कई बार आपने सब कुछ किया है तब भी आपको क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा। तो मटेरियल वर्ल्ड ऐसा है। इफ यू गेट टू अफेक्टेड बाय डुअलिटी देन विल नॉट बी एबल टू प्रैक्टिस स्पिरिचुअल। Understand that duality will come, but purpose is not to set right the duality. Purpose is to remember Krishna in that duality. Hare Krishna, Shla Prabhupada ki jai.